Hello everyone. Today we're going to be talking about subtracting fractions that require regrouping, and this is one of the hardest things with fractions that you'll have to do when it comes to addition, subtraction, multiplying, and dividing. This is tough stuff right here because it's kind of hard to understand if you don't follow the steps really clearly and keep yourself organized. So we're just going to jump right into it today. Our first problem that I have is 2 1/2 minus 3/4. Now, we have a mixed number here, 2 1/2 minus 3/4, which is just a fraction. So we'll show you how to work through a problem that looks like this first. So I always like to line everything up vertically. I mentioned that in a previous video of mine. And all the steps are basically the same that I've talked about. So what we do first is find a common denominator. And in this case, it's going to be 4. And that's nice because we get to just multiply 3/4 by 1 so that it doesn't change. And then we're going to multiply 1/2 by 2. And whatever we do to the bottom number here, the denominator, we do to the numerator. Now, this part's very important. When you're multiplying to find an equivalent fraction with a common denominator, don't multiply the whole number here. But before you multiply this out, you need to bring that whole number over so that you don't forget about it. Now we're going to multiply everything. So 1/2 becomes 2/4. Sorry, my 2 kind of looks like a Z. And 3/4 stays the same. 3/4. Alright. Now, I have 2 2/4 minus 3/4, so my denominators are the same, which is good. However, I cannot take 3 away from 2. So we're going to have to come over to our whole number here, break it apart, and regroup our fractions. Now, if you're watching this and you're unfamiliar with the term I'm about to use, I use the term decompose. Many people know it as borrowing. But we're not borrowing anything. We're breaking this 2 apart and giving some to the fraction here. We're going to give what's the same as 1 whole over to this fraction. So what that looks like is I'm going to take this 2, I'm going to cross it out, and I'm going to split this into 1 whole and then 4/4. Now I'll explain why I do that. So if I have 2, that's the same as me breaking this up into 1 and 1. Well, if I wanted to change these ones to a fraction, I could. I could turn this one into 4/4, and I could turn this one into 4/4. And it would all come out to be the same thing. That's 1, that's 1. Now, I'm keeping 1 whole here because it just makes life a little more simple. And now I'll show you what to do next. You're going to take this 1 right here. You're going to put it right on over. We don't want to forget about our whole numbers here. And now we're going to take this decomposed whole, which I've turned into 4/4, add it on to the 2/4 for a total of 6/4. So 2 and 2/4 have become 1 and 6/4. It's actually worth the same. It just looks a lot different. And then we just bring this guy right over. Now, I can take 3 away from 6. I have enough to subtract. So 6/4 minus 3/4 is 3/4. 1 minus nothing is 1. So our answer here would be 1 and 3/4. Alright, I know I went kind of fast with that, but let's do another one. Alright, so let's see what it looks like when I have a whole number and I'm subtracting a mixed number here. It's going to be a little bit different, but the same overall process. So still going to line it up vertically. Now, I see a little issue here. I don't have a fraction. So what I need to do is turn this whole number into a mixed number. And it's very easy to do that. I'm simply going to decompose that 5. I'm going to break it apart into a smaller part. So I'm going to break this apart into 5, or into 4, I mean, and 3/3. Now I'll tell you why I did 3/3. My denominator here is 3. I want a common denominator to subtract this. So I'm going to make this thirds. And I'm doing 3/3 because 3/3 is the same as 1. Whatever the bottom number is, the denominator, if the numerator is the same number, then that equals 1. So if I have 5, just to show you this again, I can break this up into 4 and 1, which is the same as breaking it up into 4 and 3/3. It's all still 5. So I'm going to just move on over here, keep myself as organized as I can. And that 5 is now 4 and 3/3 minus 1 and 2/3. And now I can subtract. 3/3 minus 2/3 is 1/3. 4 minus 1 is 3. So my answer is 3 and 1/3. Alright, and let's do another one. So this time I'm going to have two mixed numbers that I'm going to subtract. So we're going to do 7 and 2/5 minus 3 1/2. Like usual, line it up vertically, makes it easier to look at. Alright, and find common denominators here. I have 2 and 5. So fifths and halves, I need to make that a common denominator. And I want to use the least common denominator that I can, which will be 10. So from 5, in order to get to 10, I'm going to multiply by 2. And in order to get to 10 from 2, I'm going to multiply by 5. Alright, now again, this whole number, before we just start multiplying and finding an equivalent fraction, we need to go ahead and bring this whole number all the way over here so that we don't forget it. Same thing here. Now we'll find the equivalent fraction. So 2/5, 2 times 2 is 4, 5 times 2 is 10, there we go. And here we have 5/10. Alright, so I've run into a problem. I cannot take 5 away from 4. So I'm going to come over to my whole number here. I'm going to decompose and regroup. So before I do that, I want to show that 7 can be the same as 6 plus 1. And all I'm doing is taking this 1 and I'm going to change that into a fraction so that I can add it to what I already have in 7 and 4/10. Because I have to have enough tenths to take 5 away. So I'm going to keep this as 6, and I'm going to change this, however, to 10/10. And I'm choosing tenths because that's my common denominator. So this becomes 6 and 10/10. Alright, now it's all a little jumbled, so we want to rewrite it one more time to make it nice and neat. Start by bringing this whole number over 6. Bring this whole number over. Now I'm going to add the 10/10 to the tenths I already have. So that's 10/10 and 4/10, which is a total of 14/10. And then I just bring this on over. And now I can subtract. So 14/10 minus 5/10 is 9/10, and 6 minus 3 is 3. So our answer is 3 and 9/10. Well, thank you for watching. Hopefully I didn't go too fast for you. If you need to, just rewatch the videos. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you keep updated and get notified whenever I post a new video on there. Thank you very much. See y'all later.